can't start till 6:30, even though we were early this time. So at this time, I'd like you to ask you to all rise, please, to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. I just want to make a general announcement this evening. If you hear perhaps singing picked up on a microphone in the background, we currently have a dress rehearsal, parent-teacher preview going on for the musical, and that hallway is adjacent to the boardroom hallway. So they are performing, and we might have to compete a little bit with that, but it's a great preview for our ears as well. You'll also see students, case in point, walking or running from scene to scene, because the only way to get from one side of the stage to the other is this hallway. So please forgive any disruption, but we're really happy. Can't wait to see that production of The Addams Family coming up this week. All right. So having said that, made that general announcement, moving to our agenda this evening, I believe we have, first, attendance. We have a full house. All of our board members, all 9 of them are present. And I just want to make a note. We want to thank Dr. Trinkle, our assistant superintendent, for standing in here as Dr. Mann is not able to make it this evening, but we appreciate her sitting up here, and she's happy to help. All right. I got her resounding. Yeah, right. So we promise the only entertainment tonight will be from the musical. Moving on to visitor comments. We have one visitor comment for this evening. I'd ask Jamie Caverly to step up to the microphone.
Is it on? We're good? Okay, sorry. Good evening. My name is Jamie Caverly, and I have 2 students currently attending Hopewell and one that will be attending in a couple of years. I just want to speak about the Education Committee meeting that I attended on February 27th. Dr. Trinkle, and Dr. Salamento presented an overview of the current curricular initiatives, as well as 2 new curriculums that you'll be voting on this evening. As a former educator, it was very refreshing to see how transparent the district and the school was with the school board members and the community that was in attendance. The presentations were thoroughly prepared, and there was even some open discussion about them. I encourage others to attend the next committee meeting scheduled for April 4th, and I look forward to hearing more dialogue on the possibility of even implementing a full-day kindergarten program. Thank you for your time and your efforts for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yes, some of the items that were discussed at that committee meeting are coming up for a vote, and we'll have further discussion tonight. So thanks for your comments and mentioning that. It was a great meeting. At this point, I will turn it over to Dr. Trinkle for a couple of updates.
Yes, thank you very much. We'll start off with in like a lion, out like a lamb. It always seems to be a straightforward enough proverb, which March starts, it's still winter, and then by the end of the spring, by the end of the month, spring has kind of begun. And last week, I find it a good opportunity to mention that spring sports started. So it was great to see our students and our coaches outside, out in the nice weather. And I wanted to express my great appreciation for the students and the coaches dedicated to preparing our student athletes for competition. The Southern Lehigh Spring Musical, the Addams Family School Edition, will kick off tomorrow. Tonight they have their dress rehearsal. And members of our community will enjoy dinner prior to the musical provided by our food services department. And with much preparation and practice, our students will undoubtedly provide an exceptional experience to all those who attend. I look forward to attending tomorrow night myself. Thank you for all of your efforts. Last week was our Read Across America Week. We had a wide variety, an array of activities, all aimed at the cultivating for the love of learning and reading. The origin of Read Across America Week is rooted in honoring the children's author, Dr. Seuss, and the impact of his life's work on promoting literacy in young children. And over the years, this event has blossomed into one of the most exciting opportunities for our students, for both students and staff, I should say. And our students celebrated with theme days, author visits, guest readers, visits from our middle school students to share their favorite books. And I wanted to take a moment to thank our staff and our parent volunteers who worked very hard to put that outstanding opportunity together for our kiddos. On March 8th, we facilitated professional development and among a wide variety of activities that took place. And I mentioned this because I wanted to take a moment and highlight that without the support of the board, Dr. Solometto was able, with the support of the board, Dr. Solometto was able to immediately execute a plan for professional development for Study Sync. And we had our first session that I thought from feedback, the small amount of feedback received in a quick turnaround time went extremely well. So I wanted to thank you for that. Lastly, if you remember a few years ago, we modified our summer programming for the Jumpstart program for elementary students. And that program focuses on students who need a little bit of extra academic support. And that's identified throughout the school year. The program targets at-risk students at an age when remediation is most critical. And although that program was initially funded by grant resources, those are expiring, and the district has planned to fully provide support for that through district funding. So at the end of the month on March 25th, we will be seeking board approval for that to take place as well. And we look forward to providing some information about that at the end of the month. Those are my updates at this point. So off to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Moving on, the next item on our agenda is item 4, curriculum, student, and staff services. We have 3 items under this. I'd just like to rearrange them a little bit because if you look at the setup of our agenda, we have committee reports as number 6. But as I mentioned earlier, some of the committee report, specifically from the Education Committee, involves the report out on what was discussed on these 2 voting items. So I'm going to take items 4, B and C together, rearrange the agenda a little bit. But first, I'm going to ask Mr. Carney to report out just on the Ed Committee topics that deal with those 2 curriculum items. So we get that committee report section first before we're voting.
So the first program that we're bringing to the board for vote is the Spanish immersion curriculum. We spent a total of about 2.5 hours, I think, going over the process on how they came to a recommendation. We talked a lot about Southern Lehigh's Spanish immersion program. There was talk about the rubric that they used to evaluate the different alternatives that they could choose from. There was a team of SLSIP educators, which is a Southern Lehigh's Spanish immersion program educators and administration that used the rubric to evaluate 3 programs, and the committee unanimously chose Savia. Thank you, Savia for the. I sent information, but there were several reasons why they chose that program. The Education Committee is also recommending the program. I did see some feedback from the community, so I went in myself. Now, it was kind of tough because it was written in Spanish. So I did bring my Google Translate. And the things that I saw that I appreciated in the kit there was sections on vocabulary, grammar, spelling. It was tied to the Common Core standards. There were connections. They actually have built-in assessment rubrics. There was comprehension pieces, writing pieces, and a family piece. I was worried about the science of reading to see if there were connections because that was a concern. And it seems like those concerns were addressed. And I just want to thank Dr. Trinkle and Solometto for giving a fantastic presentation and answering my questions that I had. And they're also available now to answer questions or if anybody has any.
If no one has any discussion on that, we can also just continue and take both the social studies curriculum and the Spanish immersion curriculum as one voting item. But no, I'm saying, go
I
ahead.
just have a question. But
Yeah,
what
go
was
ahead.
the curriculum prior to this?
It was a Spanish translated journeys.
Okay.
So it was a similar curriculum that we were using prior to our Wit and Wisdom implementation.
Okay.
But it was an English ELA curriculum translated into Spanish.
And this is
in an authentic
great
Spanish language program.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'd just like to acknowledge Dr. Trinkle and Dr. Solometto for spending time with me. I don't know, it was 2-3 weeks ago regarding a review of some of this and the other curriculum activities. I think, from our discussions, there's been extensive reviews, extensive analysis, input, and everything I think that goes into providing a quality transition from what we had to what we have today. So thank you for that.
Can I have an understanding of the cost difference between what we were paying previously for the curriculum and the subscription services versus what we're going to be paying forward?
So the comparison from Journeys to Savia.
Yeah.
Dr. Salametta, do you have the comparisons? I have
Roughly.
what Savia is, but
I know what Savia will cost
Mhm.
roughly, so we're looking at $18,000.
Is that more or less than what we were paying for the subscription service?
I'd have to look at the difference for that. I'm not sure off the top of my head what Journey's subscription was. That was a curriculum that we were purchasing for many, many years, in addition to the ELA. So it might have been bundled to get the
Right,
separate cost,
I
yeah.
understand. I was just curious. And the second question I had was the same question with respect to the social studies curriculum that you reviewed.
Well, we're going to get to other social studies questions. If we can hold that one until we get to that item, that'd be
I
great.
thought you were taking them together.
As a vote, probably, unless the objection is, but right now, Mr. Carney just had a chance to talk about the immersion curriculum, and those are the questions we're fielding now. But we'll come right back to your question about that one. Anything else about Spanish immersion? I want to echo thanks so much for the work. That was really nice to see. I attended the curriculum committee meeting. What was also really nice to see was the involvement of staff members in that, providing their feedback. So it was great to hear, from them exactly what these advantages were. And this is the first new curriculum that has been introduced to the Spanish immersion program in many, many, many. I'm going to ever. We're going to go with ever. It's been over a decade. We've been using the same curriculum. So this is a long time coming. So really appreciate you doing that deep dive work. All right, now, Mr. Carney, back to you for the update on the Ed Committee's review of the social studies.
Yep, and as with the other piece of curriculum, we were given a lot of information and background how this fits into everything else and the 6-year cycle of review. It's not just here's the new curriculum. There's a lot of training and support that goes with it. So at the beginning, there were 8 vendors. They narrowed it down to 4. For the reasons I gave in the communication of the board, the committee that used the rubrics to evaluate and unanimously recommended SAVIS, My World Geography. The education committee is also recommending. When I personally looked at the materials, I noticed that it's an activity project. There's an activity project component to it, which was interesting. It wasn't just a textbook with information. And I went online today and I saw a lot of positive reviews about that part of it. There's a writing process, which was nice to see. There's note-taking lessons, which was fantastic for 6th and 7th grade. Literacy, analyzing text, and a lot of talk about using primary sources, which I appreciated. I think that's about it that I have to share. Yeah.
No, and thanks for the deep dive to both the committee for sitting through that. That was your first committee meeting. It was a long one. You all this, and thanks both to Dr. Sadamoto and Dr. Trinkle for presenting that.
And thanks for the community too. We got a lot of feedback and questions, and I felt like everybody left that meeting, including myself, with a better understanding of the overall picture and these specifically.
Yeah, it was great to see staff and parents and community members coming out. Any questions on the social studies curriculum that's being proposed? Go ahead, Ms. Reinhardt. Could you restate that? I forget what the question was.
The cost of the curriculum compared to previous costs of the subscription for social studies. How much of an increase are we paying? Anybody know?
I have
My
the quotes
microphone.
here, and
I know what it costs. I
Right.
saw the dollars. I was just wondering what the increase was.
is
Are we
there-
talking
do
a
you have
50%
differential?
increase, a 10% increase? Is this, just curious?
What I would say, I can speak to that to a degree, that we right now, grade 6 and 7. Do you want to come up?
It's not wonderful back there,
As I'm talking, I'm realizing it can be more than just a short answer.
Thank you, Dr. Salamanca.
Yes. So right now, grade 6 and 7 have different resources. So grade 6 has a textbook titled History of the World, which is copyrighted 2005. And it's just print. And we supplement that with some novels. So right now, in terms of what we're paying, we're just using old materials. 7th grade, we're using Discovery Ed Tech Book, which is kind of an online textbook, which runs us about $4,000 to $5,000 a year. So the cost is significantly greater.
Oh, yeah.
However, what we're getting with this is a more of a consistent programming, because 6 and 7 are now taking that ancient civilization content, splitting it, streamlining it so that students really have an understanding of how these various ancient civilizations kind of connect, how they grew as time went on, the geography. So things are going to be a lot more streamlined in terms of content. We're also getting PD, we're getting both print and digital access. So rather than having these two different resources, one of which is very old, one of which is current because it's digital, we're getting, as I said, not just a digital resource.
I understand.
Yes.
So that is a subscription service that's pretty pricey. And,
Yes.
and so you're basically a slave to that subscription contractor. In the contract, are there any limits or parameters for increases, or is it unlimited? In other words, if it's $28,000 this year, can they up it to $50,000 next year's just to keep you here? Are you a slave to it?
So we're going to be, the thought is to go ahead with a 3-year adoption. So
Okay.
the 3-year adoption, that's the cost of a 3-year adoption.
So the 28,000 is for the 3 years.
So yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
But then you have to renew
So that exactly.
or change.
Exactly. And that's the thought
Okay.
process behind
Thank you.
the
That's
3-year.
really helpful to
Yes.
understand costs.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
The
Since we're
copyright was really
talk-
helpful
since
too.
we're-
Go ahead.
I'm
Sorry,
Since
Mr.
we're
Mon.
talking about cost, the one thing I wanted to bring up, I didn't know if that would happen after the right before the vote for comments and questions, but in order for me to, I'm all in on this. However, I'm concerned about one item on the quote, which is shipping and handling costs.
We'll be using our private
Book
book
It.
it to reduce that significantly.
Okay.
Yeah, what we started doing is using Book It distribution to have it shipped ourselves. So instead of paying 10%,
Great.
we've been getting shipping around 5% or less.
So that is not an accurate number.
Okay, because this is about $5,000. I ship multi-million-dollar equipment for that halfway across the country. So it was a little concerning that it's a stack of books on 1 to 2 4x4 skids for $5,000. Even if there's handling, it should not be that much. So we should go back
No,
and
with
hold
Book
them to
It,
task. So that's great.
all
Thanks.
of our purchases that require shipping
Good.
are done through that mechanism.
All right. My apologies. I didn't know that
None-
was
none at
happening.
all.
Yes, Mr. Carney.
Is My World Geography, what is the difference between that and I saw online My World Geography Interactive or My World Interactive Geography? One of the two, they threw in the word interactive in there, and I wasn't sure if that's
That's on the quote. The My World Interactive. Is that what you're asking?
yeah. No, it wasn't in the
Oh.
quote. It's just when I was looking for online reviews of this
Oh.
program, that kept on coming up, and I wasn't sure if that was just if that's a piece of this one or different.
That's what it says.
Oh, it is. It does say interactive.
Yeah, it says interactive. If you on page 2, if you flip it when it gets
I
more
apologize.
descriptive. No, you're good.
So one of the things
That's why
I
looked
saw.
at you a little. Sorry.
One of the things
No.
I saw online that they like is all of the components. It comes with a lot. It's not just the textbook. It's
This is just part of the social studies curricular evaluation that we're doing. This just is a component. It's just these 2 grade levels to start. So this was budgeted, a social studies curriculum review was budgeted for this year. So we had this in our target for this school year to take place.
Great. Any other questions? Seeing none, could I have a motion for items? Now, again, this is where I'm taking them together. Items 4B and C.
Aye.
So moved, Mr. Mon.
Sorry.
Thank you for the motion. And I need a second.
Second.
I'm sorry, I heard second.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Wyack. A motion and a second. We already had our questioning session. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Did I just break my? No, I didn't break my mic. All right. Moving on. Going back up now to item 4A, we have an MOU for Head Start of Lehigh Valley. Before we have any discussion or questioning, could I have a motion to approve the agreement between Southern Lehigh School District and the Community Services? Thank you, Ms. Reinhardt. Second, thank you, Ms. King. All right, any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, moving on to budget and finance. Mr. Pepe.
Thank you, Madam President. Make sure you guys can hear me. So the Facilities Committee, as Mr. Boyer put out the last meeting, we had met, and one of the things that we were looking at was the new public school facility improvement grant that is available to districts for application. And when you look through it, as far as eligible projects, the two projects that we had just approved to start, which is the roof at Liberty Bell Elementary School and the chillers at Liberty Bell, are both applicable or eligible. So we are going to go ahead and file for that grant. I've already started the process. I've pretty much completed most of the grant for each one. There's a component that has addendum, which is project specific stuff as far as the schedule and some of the estimates and whatnot to be supported, which we are working with EI Associates on. We have up until May 1st to get the grant completed. Just some of the highlights and the reason I'm bringing it up tonight. One of the things that's imperative with the application is to get a resolution by the board to authorize us to go after the grant. There is a $100 non-refundable application fee, believe it or not. So we will have to put up $200, $100 per each application. And that's to the Department of Community Affairs, which us BAs did not like. And we've already voiced that. However, some of the highlights are the fact that not only are we eligible, but all of our project costs are eligible. So based on the 75-25 split, if we're successful, we would offset the chillers, for instance, that are ballparked around $1 million with a state grant of $753,000 and local of $251,000 to round out our $1,004,000 if we're successful. One of the concerns that we did have from the beginning is the evaluation criteria. And the first part of that is school entity wealth. So, that's one of the things that's probably not in our favor so much. The other project, the roofing at Liberty Bell, that's about $2.6 million all in. And that covers everything from advertising, legal, professional services, equipment, and contractor services. So if we were successful, that would turn around, and instead of us footing 2.6 mil, we would only be responsible for $666,000. And we'd be looking at a grant in the neighborhood of $2 million. So we are going to finish and get that, submit it in time. And if we're successful, great. If not, we do have the monies put into capital reserve to fund the projects. So we're going to be moving forward on that. Any questions?
Ms.
sorry?
Reinhardt, could you turn on your microphone so we could hear your?
When do you need the resolution?
The resolution is going to be on the agenda on the 25th.
Okay.
And that's definitely in time for what we're doing. So the purpose of explaining tonight was to give everybody a heads up. So when you see it on the agenda in 2 weeks, it's not the first time you're seeing it or what's this about.
So Lou, that's the maximum funding allowable. Are they going to apportion it potentially?
Well, what it is they have a project range from, your project has to be 500,000 minimum up to 5 million. And the monies that are earmarked for the grant will be spread throughout the state of Pennsylvania. So some districts could experience, huge volumes of grant depending on what they put forward. And there may be some districts that make application and don't get anything, or may get a portion of whatever's left.
I got it. Thank you.
And thanks for reporting out the, as you mentioned, we might not get those funds, but we appreciate you going through. It's a thankless task is grant writing, and we appreciate you applying regardless of, because if we get it, it's a big impact. So thanks for that work. Really appreciate it. Thankless work. Moving on to committee reports. I think, Mr. Carney, we'll just bounce back to you because you delivered, I guess, half of your education committee report. 2/3, excellent. All right, we'll bounce back to the rest of your committee report.
The only piece that's missing actually is that besides looking at those two in particular pieces, we did an overview of current projects being implemented. We looked at a curriculum matrix for all of those that get excited about those, going all the way out to 28, 29. And then we looked at things coming out, initiatives that will need further action as we go along. And then April 4th, thank you. April 4th, we'll be looking at handbook and code of conduct and full-time kindergarten discussion.
Thank you very much. Other committee reports other than, go ahead, Ms. Torba. The button is closer to you. You have the circle.
There it is.
There you go.
Dr. Twinkle always turns it on.
You share a mic over there with her, and tonight she's up here. All right.
I don't have my backup singer. Nothing to report, but technology committee meeting will be next Monday, the 18th, 4:15. I think it's posted on the website. So we're looking forward to looking at some troubleshooting items with our hardware and software, and just looking at what to look forward with deployment of hardware. So we welcome all.
Thank you for that. Mr. Boyer, nothing to report out on facilities, nothing new there. I will, I was just going to say before, I'll finish up with committees and then I'll hunt over. Policy committee met, discussed a number of policies in the 120 series. And we had great discussion, and we will need to revisit those again after some solicitor review of language and language changes. And we will meet again the first week of April. April the 6th, I believe, is the date. The first Wednesday of April, whenever that falls. And that is the agenda. You can see the policies that we're discussing, both past and present. And we'll be bringing the 120 series that we discussed to the board for a vote anticipated sometime in the month of April.
April 3rd, Ms. Gaiman.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said
April
April 6th before. I misspoke. It's April 3rd. Thank you, Ms. Cruz, for that. The next policy committee meeting is April 3rd. Before I go over to Mr. Mon and Mr. Kearney for the LCTI report, I am the representative on the CLIU, and there was no meeting for the month of February, and our IU meeting is coming up on the 18th. So I will report out at our next meeting what transpires there. And now we're ready for the LCTI. Mr. Mond?
Okay, I don't have too much to report, although 2 out of the 9 school districts have approved the budget, we being one of the 2. They're ongoing. And we had some reorganization of committees and some realignments there. And we break out into committees before each board meeting. I don't know, Mr. Kearney, if you have other things, but go ahead.
So there was a student that spoke to us about LCTI's new animal science program, and it was a veterinarian kind of program, and she got accepted to 9 schools. So anybody considering that should look into it. If anybody wants to detail the LCTI budget book, I have it here. Feel free to take a look. Priority enrollment ended March 1st. All 5th grade classes will, from all the feeder schools, will be visiting LCTI March 11th through the 22nd. They, as Mr. Mon pointed out, they're going through a review process. Happens once about every 5 years. They look at recommendations for improvement. I was not aware that, and Mr. Mon, you might have, or other people, there's a salon at LCTI that offers cuts, color, perms, manicures, pedicures, and facials. It helps students, and I heard the prices are very reasonable.
I know about it, but I can't use it.
And then
send
they
Karen.
also have, to help students out, and I heard it's really good, they also have a bakery, pastries, pies, cakes, donuts, and cookies. You go up and pick it up on Friday. It's called the Bake Shop. I have the phone numbers if anybody wants it. There was a student of ours from Southern Lehigh. I think her first name's Lindsay. She participated in a discussion involving the state PDE, CTE. It was called a listening forum. So I was happy to see a Southern Lehigh student there. LCTI is looking at creating a foundation. They started a monthly newsletter. And so far they've raised almost $2 million just this year in grant money. It was almost 2 million, just under. And so far, there's been 43 yeses from various school boards for the LCTI approving the budget and 0 no votes.
All
And
right.
ACMC, I'll just keep going. ACMC
Yes, thank you.
Is we're meeting on March 20th,
Next Wednesday.
next Wednesday.
All right. Thanks very much. Moving on in our agenda to new business. Actually, I just have one item I'd like to, and as a parent reading my announcements district-wide, I just want to say thanks to the staff who have opened their rooms and their supervised spaces to students in our district who are observing Ramadan this month for the next 4 weeks. So that they've opened their spaces and supervised them over their lunch periods so students have a place other than our cafeteria to go who are observing that. So I just want to say thank you to staff for extending, over what is inevitably probably your lunch periods as well in your spaces to help our students in their observance. That's my new business. Thank you. Anyone else? New business? Mr. Carn?
So it doesn't get lost. I think that perhaps we could get a report from administration at some point in the future about the high school library status and the options and development. No pressure.
There was a great discussion at the facilities committee, I believe.
So yeah, so that was something that was on the agenda for the facilities committee. That was back in February. So just preliminary discussions that night of that. I think Karen, actually, I think you're leading the conversations for the library. It was a couple months ago. A lot took place, but there's conversations in regards to plans for what the repurpose of the library would be at the high school. So as part of the next facilities meeting coming up in the beginning of April on the 2nd, that will be one of the items on the agenda for that committee meeting.
All right, great. Mr. Carney?
So I spoke to Mr. Pip about robotics. They started competing. Right now, they're 17th out of 147 in our district. They got 54 points, which is the most they've had since 2019 at any event. They made it to the semis. They have upcoming competitions. He said he will send the board information about their competition at Lehigh. But if you want to mark it on your calendars, it's April 3rd through the 6th is what he said. And I was excited to see that they won an industrial design award at their last competition. There's a write-up on what that means, but it was pretty neat to see. Again, the musical is going on. I'm excited to head over there as soon as we're done. Online SATs, I was worried. I went on national news today to see if there was any kind of breakdown in the SAT. It officially went online for the first time. And from what I heard from some students and from teachers here is that it went pretty smoothly. And I didn't read anything in the national news about the system breaking down. St. Patrick's Day. The reason I say that is because the one year I was teaching, we had a teacher test. All the teachers had to take something. And it was a law, and we took it 1 year, and it crashed the system, and we never heard about that teacher test again. And we didn't do it on purpose. I'm just saying it happened. So I was happy to see it didn't crash. The last thing is St. Patrick's Day parade. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. If there's any educators that are interested in marching in the Allentown St. Patrick's Day parade, if there's any educators and their families can march too, there is a group of educators that march in that parade. So reach out to me if you want to.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Carney. Any other new or other business? Seeing none, we have There's a section of information only field trip requests. It's information only, not a voting item. Just check that out. And visitor comments. We do have one other visitor comment at this time. Julie Bird. Would you please come? Thank you.
Hello. My name is Julie Bird. I have a child in second grade at Hopewell and another one set to register in kindergarten in April. I would like to thank the administration and the board tonight, particularly those involved in the education committee. The presentation at the committee meeting in February was incredibly thoughtful and informative, and I appreciated it a lot as a parent in the district and also as a person who was a teacher who was involved in a different way. It was really neat to see the whole thing. My kids are at the beginning of their academic journeys at Southern Lehigh. Getting to see how past plans have come to fruition, current initiatives are progressing, and future projects are planned was super cool. And at the risk of fangirling, it was so cool. Please forgive me. Or don't. That's your prerogative. I appreciate feeling heard when I mentioned a concern I noticed about the structure of elementary math as it relates to my particular child, who I've spoken about before. And I also appreciate being acknowledged in the request for changes to the kindergarten plan that would allow our youngest students the opportunity to have a full day experience. Thank you for the opportunity to be there and for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Thank you. All right. We don't have any other individuals who signed in to speak at visitor comment. So at this time, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mr. Boyer. All right, we are adjourned. Have a great evening.